Hello you guys. So today we learn about advantages and disadvantages essay. So as you can see on the screen, the lesson is in 3 different parts. So first of all, we learn how to analyze the question. It's the first circle over here. And then we move on to learn about the language of advantages and disadvantages essays. And finally, we learn the structure of a good advantages and disadvantages essay. Now let's start with question analysis. In this part, I will give you a sample question, and then I will show you that there are 3 different steps of analyzing it. In the first step, we would identify the type of question, and then in a second, we find out about the keywords of the question, and finally, we brainstorm for a list of ideas to answer the question. Now let's take a close look at the question. Do some students prefer to take a gap year between high school and university to work or to travel? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Alright, so because this is a sample question, I would walk you through the first few things over here. Whenever you see this one question, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? That would be a advantages and disadvantages essay. So that's pretty basic and simple. To answer this question, there are actually 2 different things that you have to do. First of all, you need to discuss both of the sides. Alright, so maybe you think that there are more advantages, or the advantages are more significant than the disadvantages. And then if you think that, you need to discuss only the disadvantages, then probably you get it wrong, because you still need to discuss both of them. So let's say advantages and then disadvantages, but that's not the only thing. After discussing the 2 sides, the other thing you need to do would be to demonstrate what you think. If you say yes, that means the advantages are more significant. And if you say no, then the disadvantages are more significant. That's quite basic, right? But if you don't have this opinion part, you will get a band 5 because you are not addressing all parts of the question. So that's somewhere we should start with. This is, again, I would remind you that this is a advantages and disadvantages essay. It's one of the 3 main types of IELTS essay. The advantages and disadvantages discuss both of the sides, so that would be categorized into this discussion essay group. And then in addition to that, we also have problem and solution and opinion. Throughout this course, we would learn about all these types of essay. So for now, let's move back over here. Alright, so in the second step of analyzing the question, we would need to underline all the keywords. Well, that's a really essential thing to do. Let's look at the question again. Some students prefer to take a gap year between high school and university to work or to travel. So if you look at this, what do you think would be the keywords? Long, can you help me? What do you think are the keywords?
Gap year.
Alright, so you have gap year. What's next?
Work and travel.
Work and travel?
Yeah.
Is that everything? Alright. So basically we have a gap year, of course, but this is not a gap year of anyone, of just anyone. That would be the gap year of students. So we don't want to talk about gap years of working professionals. They are irrelevant. We only talk about the gap year of students between high school and university. And I also agree with you that work and travel are also keywords. So let's say we are not talking about students who spend a gap year to do just anything. Maybe they spend a gap year to sleep throughout the year. But we are not talking about them. We talk only about those who work or those who travel. In other words, what we need to discuss would be the advantages and disadvantages of either working or traveling in the gap year. So that's actually what we are doing. based on this analysis, we can create a rough outline of how we will answer the question. So in the first body paragraph, we can talk about the advantages of working and traveling in the gap year. And then in the second body paragraph, we are discussing about the other things, right? The disadvantages. Okay, so Hưng, can you help me? What do you think is the benefit of working for a year for a student graduating from high school between he or she goes to university?
Okay, it must be work experience, and it can help a student to know what is the most important thing when he or she work afterward. Yeah.
Okay. So
and
yeah.
to travel, I think.
Go on.
Okay, and to travel, student can broaden their horizons to see other cultures. So if they studying abroad, if it's their plan, so they can adapt it better afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So you mentioned 2 advantages of working and 1 more advantage of traveling in a gap year. And I agree with all of that. If students work, they will get the experience. And the experience is kind of a key thing for that student to succeed in the future, especially when he or she applies for a job. So that's really crucial. And about those who travel, you are also right about that students can learn a lot of like cultural things when they travel abroad. And well, that's gonna be like better if that person chooses to work in an international environment. Especially when we consider that we are living in this age of globalization. So I have prepared a few notes on the key ideas of this paragraph. So when we brainstorm for ideas, I want you to present your ideas in form of like bullet points like this, because that will be a lot easier and that saves your time. Use as many arrows as you can. For example, by traveling, students can get social and cultural experience, and for those who work, they can get like working experience, and they can enhance their skills as well. I have also highlighted a few different keywords in this topic. If you want, you can take note of these keywords so you can reuse them if you get a similar topic in the future. All right. And so that's it for the first part about the advantages. Let's move on to the disadvantages. Okay, so working and traveling bring lots of things, lots of good things. And in addition to these good things, there are some like negative things as well. So I want you to suggest a few negative things of working and traveling in the gap year, please. For this time, Quang, can you give me a few ideas? What do you think?
I think the disadvantages would be first for working, since they don't have a proper training, so they will be considered as unskilled labor. So they are likely to work.
Right. So what kind of jobs? Yeah. Do you think that they are gonna get like good jobs, like accountants?
No, I think the opposite.
The opposite. So what kinds of jobs do you think that they are getting in the gap year?
Like a physically demanding job.
Yep. So yep. Well, I have a personal experience with this. So let's say back then it was when I was in the UK, most of the students who got a job, of let's say washing dishes and working as waiter and waitresses in restaurants, and that would be pretty much, I think, physically demanding, just as you said. All right. So, that's the first thing. They are not really getting really good jobs in the gap year. That's one thing to consider. But, we need at least 2 ideas per paragraph. So Guang, can you suggest one more idea for the second body paragraph, please?
So about traveling, they could be like a year. They could have a year to relax, so without any discipline. So the life would be extremely addictive for them.
Addictive? All right.
Yeah.
So what would happen? Can you expect at the end of that gap year?
Like they may decide not to pursue further study anymore.
Really? Yeah. That's something to consider as well, right? So if they choose not to go back to school after all, after the gap year, that would be a huge loss to themselves,
for the society.
Yeah, and for society as well. Yeah. So well, I also prepared some like key ideas to answer to talk about the disadvantages, and I will show it right now. Some of the ideas are the same with yours. The one about like not going back to school after the gap year, well, that's something that we can consider. And the second idea that I put into this sample is, well, about the difficulty that students may have to encounter when they go back to school after the gap year. Like they spend 1 year doing simply nothing related to studying, so they may lose the habit of learning. They may forget a lot of knowledge that they learned at high school. So when they enter university, that's gonna be like very hard for them to familiarize themselves with the learning environment again. All right. So over here, I have highlighted some keywords as well, just like fail to recall the knowledge. That's a better phrase than just saying forget the knowledge. You can take note of that if you want to. Okay. So that's it for the first part about a sample question analysis. I would give you